All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with my friend, Tim Francis. Tim, welcome, man. Good to have you.
I'm honored to be a part of this incredible legacy of wonderful work that you're doing with this podcast, honoring not just those who get a lot of the spotlight, but the incredible cast of characters behind the scenes that really are the village that help raise entrepreneurs.
That's right. Man, I love the way you put that, because you are right. It's a lot of behind the scenes people that we've been able to honor in this. And this is really awesome. And I've been really looking forward to this interview in particular, because you and we got connected through our mutual friend, Eric DeWay. And then last year, and the thing is, like, I've known of you. I don't know, what you knew about me before Eric connected us, but I've known of you for a while and the work that you have done. And so to get connected by Eric, I just thought was really cool. And then last year, when I was coming down to Austin for a seminar that was being put on, you and I got to get together in person and hang out for the afternoon, which was just great. And now here we are again. And I'm blown away at how fast the last year has gone by. So what we'll do is, Tim, we'll just kind of start off by, I'd like to turn it over to you and just let you share a little bit of your background. What do you do? Who do you serve? What motivates you to do what you do? And just let everybody know a little bit, who is Tim Francis? And we'll just kind of set some context here.
Sure. Thank you. So in 2001, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a common starting point for a lot of folks. And I was also a varsity athlete. I played college indoor volleyball on scholarship at basically a Div 2 school up in Canada. And that's where I really learned how to work and compete. The success formula that I picked up then was work hard, listen to coach, and take 100% responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And one of the probably three most influential people in my youth and young adulthood was my college coach, Arch Beck. That dude, he was my coach for 1 year, and he revolutionized my life. Like, just an incredible human being. And maybe we'll talk more about him in a few minutes. So I took that attitude forward. And as I was completing my degree at the University of Alberta, it was coincided perfectly with the real estate market boom. And so houses from I think it was 04 to 06 went up by 66% in that window of time. So here I am going to school, and I've just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad a few years earlier. And I got this athlete mindset, like, let's go. And all I wanted to do was just finish my degree so I could get going with investing into real estate. Well, I graduated in 06, and I felt like I'd done my duty, and now it was full tilt, and I learned everything that I could. And the same three parts, the success story of work hard, listen to coach, and take 100% responsibility. And incredibly, I actually did get a lot of what I wanted. I ended up acquiring over $1 million worth of property. It was 4 houses in total. In basically 1 year, I did that. And I thought I kind of had it made in the shade. And then the real estate collapse hit. And I ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I ended up net worth of negative $200,000 in 2008 dollars. So it's like $240,000 in 2022 dollars. And at the time, I was actually also a touring drummer with a rock band that was kind of rising in Canada. We had 3 sponsors and airplane 8 cities. We were asked to play at the Western Canadian Music Awards, which was exciting, but then we ended up breaking up 20 minutes before we went on stage. So that was like heartbreaking after 6 years and all the time we'd put into it. And still played the show, but it was one of the most hollow feelings of my life. And then shortly after that, one of my mentors, a business mentor, it turned out that he was the lead promoter of a $12 million Ponzi scheme. And the lead investor ended up getting convicted in court, $225,000 fine, barred from holding securities for 25 years. He basically fled the country. So 1, 2, 3, bing, bang, boom. Big losses, big disappointments, lots of stress. Oh my God, so much stress, largely because of money and largely because of shame, of feeling so like such a failure. And so to go from, I'd won one of my city's top 20 to 30 awards and, getting 4 houses and being a touring drummer and being a varsity athlete and having all these big wins, to now all of a sudden lose. And the stress caught up with me. And it was December of 2010, December 26th specifically. I went to pick up my family. I was living in my home city of Edmonton, Canada at the time, and I was going to drive my family to West Edmonton Mall, the largest shopping center in North America, bigger than Mall of America even. And my mom noticed I had a little bit of a limp, and she said, "Honey, what's going on? Are you feeling okay?" And so, it's snowy, so I take my boots off as I walk in her front entrance. I put my foot up on a chair, and we roll up my pant leg, and to my surprise, like it was almost like in a matter of minutes, looked like I had rolled my ankle, like playing basketball or something, but I hadn't suddenly, but I just had this inflammation. And she said, there's no way you're going to walk around a mall for 4.5 hours with ankles like that. And so I stayed home. Kevin, within 5 days, so December 31st, I hosted my own New Year's Eve party. The swelling had gone through my ankles, up through my legs. It was so painful that I actually couldn't stand anymore, let alone a walk. And little did I know that I had developed a case of erythema nodosum. In essence, for the next 3 months, I wasn't able to walk, stand, or work. So now I'm $200,000 upside down, and I have no way to make a single dime to be able to pay any of it back. So I had to move back in with my parents for full-time care. And it was at the point of like, I had to choose between sitting on a stool in the shower that my mom would put there for me so I could bathe myself, or the alternative was my mom giving me a sponge bath in bed. And I was 28 years old. Keep in mind, former varsity athlete, former rock star, former real estate guy, all the rest. And now I was like, had the mobility of like a 99-year-old. So it was incredibly humbling. It was a very, very dark point. And thankfully, I'd taken some personal development courses through a group called the Satvatov Institute, led by Dr. David Wolf. And it's all about transformative communication, personal responsibility, and spirituality, not religiosity, but spirituality. And so using some of the tools I got from there, I mean, I had a lot of time to think, Kevin. I was laying on my back every single day in bed for months on end. And one question that I asked over and over again was, what role did I play in creating this? What role did I play in creating this? What role did I play in creating this? And some days, I felt hopeful. Other days I felt super, super ashamed, and I felt super defeated. And then other days I just felt angry. It's a real emotional roller coaster. And then one day in February of 2011, so month 2 of the recovery, I had a moment that changed my life forever. I felt a warmth in my body. I felt a tingling. And then I heard a voice, and it said, "Tim, entrepreneurship. Is this really what you want?" And in that moment, the world stopped turning. Like a second could have gone by, a minute could have gone by, an hour could have gone by. I had no idea. Time stood still. And then I heard another voice. And that voice was quiet, and it was weak. It was distant, but it was clear. And it said simply, yes.
Wow.
And in that moment, all of a sudden, I felt like a cascade of like dominoes, one after the other, falling through my head, my heart, my spirit. And I realized that up until that single moment, I'd been chasing fame and fortune, rock and roll and real estate. And what I needed to be chasing was truth and mastery.
Wow. Wow.
And I said to God in that moment, if all I get to do for the rest of my life is get a little bit better at entrepreneurship with every week that goes by, that would be a life well lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of a Confucian: before enlightenment, carry water and chop wood. After enlightenment, carry water and chop wood.
Yeah. Wow.
And so thus began what turned out to be a 7-year journey of figuring out how to pay off $200,000 of debt. And it was ugly and gory and painful and frustrating, and endless nights of late night work, learning, marketable skills that I could bring to the market. I can thank Perry Marshall for being an incredible help along the way. First his books and courses, and then after that, I participated in his live events, and, just talking to me for a few minutes on the side, if I just kind of had to share my heart, and he give me a little pep talk. And his community, the community of people that he's pulled in around him. And so I had so I ended up with a digital marketing agency. I started doing that. And I realized that I was better at process than at marketing. So I ended up winding that down.
Okay.
And another big moment of my life where things changed is when I got my first North American grade assistant. I had tried hiring overseas a la 4-hour work week over and over and over again, and I failed 5 times in a row. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a big old 0 for 5. And I'd made only $39,000 at that point in 1 year. So like $39,000 a year. And I just remember thinking to myself, if I'm ever going to fulfill on the potential that the good Lord's given me, this is going to be a team effort. There's that African proverb that if we want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And I also knew that amateur hour was over. I couldn't waste a single day or a single week fighting with communication problems because someone's halfway around the world and doesn't have reliable internet. And so despite the fact I was very much in debt and had only made $39,000, I said, I'm going to hire someone in North America. I don't know where to find them. I don't know how to pay for them. I don't know if I can even afford them. I don't know what I would delegate. And the biggest of all probably was, oh my God, I don't know how to let go of control and trust someone, if I'm being totally honest with myself.
Yeah.
I ended up though finding a woman named Sarah. She was a former paralegal in Kokomo, Indiana. She'd never worked in a marketing agency before. She had never worked online before. But she had the right wiring. Like she was the right soul with the right brain and the right everything. And we just started simple, a few hours a week. She took a couple things off my plate here and there. And lo and behold, after 12 months of working together, I nearly tripled my income to $107,000 a year, simply because she made me so much more productive. I could focus on the big things, which then made me much more profitable. So productivity and profitability came hand in hand. And over time, I kept reflecting on, how could I screw up so badly to lose all that money back in the crash? And it was around that time that I really realized that, hard work is not enough.
Yeah.
If I say, hey, I'm going to work as hard as possible, I'm going to run as fast as possible towards my goal, and I'm going to tell everybody about it, and I'm going to be motivating, and I'm going to get everyone behind me, and we're going to run, but I'm running off the edge of a cliff, we've got a problem. So effort and character, that can be kind of the deck chairs, and the Titanic is maybe the market that we're in, or the industry that we're in, or where we are in the business cycle. And it made me really realize that making good CEO level decisions is way different than being a college athlete.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it was, around that time that I spent around $100,000 and spent 4 years crisscrossing the continent, meeting and learning from incredible guys. Through Perry, I met Richard Kosh and had a cocktail with him. He's now a billionaire, circa 2022. Keith Cunningham, Jack Stack. I took some accounting classes at the University of Alberta, which I was terrified for because I failed at calculus 3 times. I'm not a math guy, but here I am, trying to figure out how to make this thing work, because that was my commitment to God was, I'm going to get better 1% per week if I need to. And, all parts of business, I need to have at least basic competency at, and that includes, understanding a few things about the numbers. Mm-hmm. So it took 7 years, but I paid off all 200 grand, never declared bankruptcy. Out of it, ended up with a great assistant. Tons of my friends were just like, Tim, where did you find this angel? Your productivity and profitability is incredible. Like, what happened? And so then I just started helping my friends. And before I knew it, I'd helped like a few dozen. And I was like, I think there's a business here. And so I ended up shutting down the marketing company altogether and launched Great Assistant. And now we're a team of 8 people, and we've helped hire, we've helped over 500 clients, and many of those clients have multiple assistants. So some of them, like Pete Vargas has 7 assistants from us, and Russ Ruffino has 7 assistants from us. And there's a couple folks from Strategic Coach, are big believers in what we do. Marisa Murgatroyd's got a couple assistants from us. A lot of expert authors have hired us, and it's been very successful. So I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the hard road I've taken. Honestly, I don't think I could have done it any other way. It's been an incredible street MBA. It's one of those weird moments, Kevin, where I'm like, simultaneously, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yet at the same time, I wouldn't wish this path on my worst enemy.
Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And, isn't it interesting that, this whole thing started just because you had found this assistant for yourself. You had this amazing experience, and now your entrepreneur friends were like, Tim, how'd you do that? And you just were like, well, I just want to help them because I like them. I appreciate them. If I can help them out, I'd want to do that. And a business was born from that. And I've had a very similar experience. It's just helping friends, and that's how business was born from that. And yeah, that is really awesome. That is, and you're right. Sharing those dark and challenging times. As you were sharing that, I'm just like, wow. Because every entrepreneur, we've all had them. And you're right. We wouldn't wish it on anybody, but yet at the same exact time, I can tell you that my dark and challenging times has given me so much empathy for other entrepreneurs, and that when they share with me of stuff they've gone through or are going through, because I've been there in a lot of ways, we can connect that much more powerfully because we have the shared experiences, and that's how we really connect. We don't connect by talking about, hey, this is where I'm crushing it, and like, man, no, we connect by sharing war stories, by sharing scars, by sharing, just keeping it real. That's when we really connect with people. That's when we find out, holy cow, you've been through all of that, man. You know what? I liked you before, but man, now I really like you, and I want to get to know you better, And so thank you for that, Tim. So I'd like to shift gears just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. Have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person? And Tim, I'm just really excited to hear your story, your experience around this, as well as give you the opportunity to honor somebody who's had such a profound impact on your life and on your business.
Yeah, I would say that it's kind of like three kind of groups of people that so Kevin, my first job after I got my kinesiology degree is I worked at the Women's Federal Penitentiary.
Okay.
Yeah. Minimum, medium, maximum security was all women, 110 inmates, 64 staff. Of the 64 staff, from janitor to warden, there were 2 men, me and one of the guards. Wow. I was a recreation officer. So I would work out with the inmates and, talk to them about diet and exercise and whatnot. And that was such a powerful experience because in that prison, disproportionately were human beings who had not enjoyed the same support that I had up until that point in my life. And I had a very simplistic view prior to working there that you do the crime, you do the time, there's good guys and bad guys, and that's it.
Yeah.
And, just because I'd never been exposed to it. And, a few moments ago, you mentioned the word empathy, the amount of empathy that delivered for me to learn about how we arrive in the spots that we're in life. I'll always remember this one day. I walked in to the prison, and there was a new inmate that had arrived. And, every day when I'd clock in, I'd go to my little office near the gymnasium, and I'd look at the warden's report for the day. And we had this binder that, this is a handful of years ago, it was in a binder, not like some big electronic database, but I'm going through the binder, and it had like some profiles on the inmates. How did they arrive here in this situation? And I always remember looking at this one inmate's history, and I looked at it, and yeah, it's pretty bad to rob a bank at gunpoint and kill somebody. That's certainly not okay. As I rewound the tape on their life though, and I looked at it, it was like, here's an inmate that grew up in a very, very poor area of Canada. And it was so poor, in fact, that I believe she had to stay awake at night so that no one would break into their home and steal their food.
Wow.
So because of that, she was too tired to learn the way that a child could or should. And so she dropped out in 8th or 9th grade, never got high school education, never had access to 99% of the jobs out there. So how does she make money? So she's with really no other choices, it was either theft or dealing marijuana. So she deals marijuana for a little while. Then after that, I think it was like her mom fell sick or something. And so she needed more money to help support her parents. Okay, so then she graduated from marijuana to harder drugs that she's dealing. Well, one day her stash gets stolen. And so now she needs to get a big block of money, or else her life's at risk. So what's one way that you can get a lot of money quickly? We're going to go rob a bank. And she was terrified. She had never owned a gun before, to my knowledge, never really operated one, and walks into a bank, doesn't really know what she's doing, and gets scared and pulls the trigger. Are any one of those crimes acceptable? Absolutely not. When I thought about it though, and I thought about if I was in her exact situation, I'm not sure, Kevin, if I would have made different decisions.
Yeah.
Maybe there's no way to know unless it actually happened. But suddenly I was like, wow, now that I actually understand why this person made these choices, they're not all that different from me. So that was a massive eye opener for me. And it also had me really, really appreciate how much I had won what Warren Buffett would call the Ovarian Lottery, growing up to the parents that I did with the upbringing that I had. So when I think about these three groups of people that really set the stage for everything for me, the first is absolutely my parents, my mom and my dad, Marriott and Dale. I'm getting kind of emotional just thinking about them, how much they did for me. Growing up as a kid in Canada, my biggest concern each day was just, where are we playing street hockey today? It's that was the extent of my worries. Never worried about food, clothes, shelter, safety. Could ride my bike up and down the street. It was such a gift. And I took it for granted. I didn't know any better, but
Sure.
Working in the prison, I saw how many kids didn't have that. So for my parents to give me that psychological safety, it gave me a shot at being able to try things, whether it was play sports or take a risk and try some leadership things at school. I didn't have to have a job or anything like that. I could just explore my interests, which was such an incredible gift, such an amazing developmental step for me. And that really leads to, the next major kind of group of people that helped me. And it's the school that I went to, especially in junior, senior high. I went to a French immersion school called, it's French, École Secondaire Sainte-Marguerite Duville. It's a mouthful. It's Margaret Duville. We'll just call it that. And there's two people there, especially that really opened my world up. And one was the vice principal, Emily Kane. And the person who really, really, really takes the cake there is a woman named Lisa LaRose. She was my math teacher, and she was also the student council liaison. And there was a day that I was in the hockey locker room, and some of my teammates who were at other high schools were bragging about how at their high school, they got to go on this cool ski trip. And it was like all the buzz and, anybody's going. My school didn't have that. And so I approached the vice principal, Emily Kane, and I said, I want to do that. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I want to be a person who organizes this for my peers. I want us to have a ski trip too. And to her credit, Kevin, instead of her saying no, or that's ridiculous, or that's not in the budget, or, we don't do that here, she just said, okay, bring me a proposal. I'll put some numbers together, give me a plan, show me what you got. So off I went, and I started dialing different bus companies like Highway Motor Coach type places. And years later, I'd find out what happened behind the scenes, but I call this company called Buy West Translines. And in my 14-year-old or 15-year-old voice, however old I was, I'm asking to rent this, $300,000 bus with a driver to take 45 high school kids to a ski trip. If that's not a liability red flag built on top of a liability landmine, you know what I mean? I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is when they put me on hold to forward me to the general manager of the company, they were having a little mini meeting in the Buy West Transline office. Like, is this kid for real? Should we really do this? Right. I found that out later. And, but they took a risk on me too. They said, sure, be $1,000 or whatever it was. Then I call we're very lucky in my part of Canada. We're at the Canadian Rockies. So, we have Lake Louise and Sunshine Village, world-class ski resorts there. And so I called around and got budgets, and I presented my idea to Emily Kane, to Madame Kane. I said, here's my budget. Here's the plan. What do you think? And so she ended up saying, okay, Tim, I think we could probably do this. She got the principal on board. And then she put me in touch with the student council liaison, Lisa LaRose. And from that first ski trip, I had to take my first risk with trying something in front of my peers, having a budget and controlling money, marketing, logistics, making sure all our waivers got signed. So there's a legal component. It was a whole little mini business experience in of itself. And I'll always remember coming off that trip, off the bus, and everybody just said, thank you, Tim, and shook my hand and oh, that was pretty rad. And in that moment, my confidence probably 10x'd in terms of what I thought was possible, which on one hand was a really good thing. And on another hand, also is probably a little irritating to the school in the following years. Cause I was like, well, if we can do one ski trip, let's do 10. And if we can do ski trips, then let's book school buses to go to Edmonton Oilers hockey games. We'll buy 40 tickets. We'll block out the student section and we'll go to a playoff game. And if we can do that, how about intramurals? And I was just on fire after that. And through 11th grade, then I ran for a student council president in 12th grade. And every time Lisa LaRose would say, okay, what's the plan? Who do you need to work with? And she facilitated that every step along the way. And then obviously Madame Kane, the vice principal, would sign off on things. And, those two women just absolutely changed my life. And if it weren't for them, I really don't think I would be an entrepreneur, winning awards and whatever like I am now. So those two, and especially Lisa LaRose, changed my life forever. And that leads to our third person, which is my college high school coach, Arch Beck. And one moment that I'll always remember is we were playing, there was a ref strike. There was a strike. The referees weren't coming out to ref games. And so there was volunteer refs, and they typically weren't as experienced or as good as the professional referees that would come ref our college games. And we get a couple calls against us that are like, like the ball, it was like the first one was like pretty clearly on the line, but the ref just didn't see it right. And the next ball was like clearly, and there was daylight between the line and the ball in a good way. Like it was clearly, and it still got called out. And so we're huffing and puffing on the court, like this isn't fair, this isn't right. Arch calls a timeout. We go to the sideline, and we think that he's going to jump on the bandwagon and say like, oh, yeah, this ref is no good. Like, don't let him get to you, on and on. Instead, he looked each of us in the eye with a very simple message. He said, gentlemen, I don't care what you think about the last 2 points. Your job is to crush the ball so in the middle of the court that every human being in this entire gymnasium knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that this ball is in. There's no room for interpretation.
Wow.
Go get after it. And that's what we did the next 2 plays. And I think we ended up winning that set. So, so like, just look at all this support that I've had, from my parents to my high school to now being in college and having this elite athletics experience. What a foundation. And then to realize how different that was from all the women that I saw in the prison, or at least most of them. And it's just like, how did I get so lucky, to have such a wonderful upbringing? So Kevin, that's my answer in terms of, the people who set the foundation for the rest of my life.
Yeah, man, I love it. So what is one thing that now stands out in your mind that would have never happened if not for these experiences you've had, these relationships you've had with Emily, with Lisa, with Art? What's just one thing that really stands out that would have never happened without those relationships being in place?
I've asked myself versions of this question before, and it's so hard to know.
Okay.
It's like, how if there's a tree and it's got a root, and then if you put a sidewalk over it, the root will still find a way. I feel like, if I was the root, I don't know, like, would I have found my way to some of these opportunities? I think probably I still, one way or the other, would have found myself in kind of an entrepreneurial kind of energy and headspace. I just had a real engine for it. So I think it's not a question of if, I think it's a question of how soon and to what amplitude.
Yeah.
Like, I had the confidence at 28 to be raising tens of thousands of dollars, from strangers, friends, family, and strangers for real estate investments. And I was 28 and offering to buy 100 houses a week. Like, what?
Yeah. Right.
And that was 28, not 38 or 48 or 58. That was 28. I finished university. I took 5.5 years to finish it. I was a little slow, but I finished it, 23, 24. In less than 5 years, I was already, operating at this level that a lot of folks, I think, would like to be at, but never get around to.
Yeah.
So, I think that each one of these factors, each one of these people, each one of these environments, including the high school that I went to, they were all just unbelievable accelerators, like greater than any dozen books I could have read or whatnot. It was this environment, an environment of unconditional love and support growing up with my parents, tons of psychological safety, this environment of experimentation and going out on the edges and, being Columbus, seeing like, is the world really flat or not? That was high school with Madame LaRose and Madame Kane. And then after that, this high performance environment, playing college, where it's like, we had our own trainer, our own, physiotherapist. We had obviously our coach, we had multiple co-coaches or something. It's just like everything was there for us to succeed. And I think it's the environments and the people in them that were just such incredible incubators and accelerators. Yeah. And I think that that's probably more than anything how it sits in my brain today.
Yeah. Tim, I so appreciate you sharing this because, you know, when I started doing this podcast, when it came to light, it was just, it was the furthest thing from my mind, but yet what has transpired, and one of the biggest things being, coming to the realization, it's not like I didn't know it before, but I now am reminded of it every time I do an interview for this podcast, that as an entrepreneur, relationships are the most valuable asset we possess. And so you have been such an inspiration. And of course, that's, and for anybody listening to this, it's like, man, I just love that guy, Tim Kemp. I love the way he shows up. I'd love to find out more about what they're doing, and how can people find out more about what you guys are doing in this world, Tim?
Yeah, you bet. So our company is Great Assistant. I thought about calling the company Mediocre Assistant, but it kind of just didn't have the right ring to it. So indeed, it is Great Assistant, singular, not plural, Great Assistant. And if folks want to learn more about it, they can head to greatassistant.com/Kevin Thompson. For those of you who are audio only listening to this on podcast, that's greatassistant.com/Kevin Thompson, all one word, and Thompson does have a P in it. And there we talk a little bit about what the business is. We actually have some free tools related to accelerating your delegation to finding an assistant. We also have the opportunity for a free discovery call. If you think that getting an assistant is something you'd like to do, you can book that there as well. So it's again at greatassistant.com/Kevin Thompson. And my name is Tim Francis. So for any reason you're not able to find the URL I just mentioned, just search Great Assistant Tim Francis, send us an email, support@greatassistant.com, and let us know that you heard about us through Kevin. And we'll get linked up one way or the other.
Awesome. I love seeing Perry Marshall listed there. You and I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I first met Perry all the way back in 1999 was when I first met Perry, and we have become great friends over there. So you mentioned him, and I'm like, yes, that man has had a big impact on me. In fact, you know what? My wife and I, we have a family foundation. We support an orphanage down in Jamaica, and we were there. Oh gosh, we adopted Abby. Let me see, she's 3, so she's 11. So we adopted Abby 8 years ago. So that was the conversation was probably started having about 10 years ago. We were down there visiting the orphanage. We were going back to the hotel, and my wife announces, "I want to adopt." And I'm thinking, honey, we're good. We got 6 kids. We're good, honey. And she's, I know, but I want to give one child a leg up that they wouldn't have if it weren't for us. And Perry was the very first person I reached out to because I knew he had adopted and stuff.
More than once.
Yes.
Yeah, China. Yeah.
And so, yeah. Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Any last words you'd like to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I think, when I think all the way back to that moment when I was laying in bed and I met God, and I wouldn't call myself a religious person, definitely spiritual. In that moment, I just was so moved by the gifts that I have been given. And it's like every year that goes by, it's revealed to me yet another level of the gifts that I've been given. Going from varsity athlete to not being able to walk is appreciating the gift of movement. To go from, -200 to 0 is being grateful for the village that helped me get to where I am. And we really have been blessed. If someone's listening to this podcast, I'm going to guess that they have at least a few advantages, because this kind of podcast, we just attract that. And every day is precious. Every day is precious. I learned at 28 that a lot can disappear really quickly, from status to money to houses to health. Goodness gracious, everything can go away very quickly. And especially on the note of health, there's this great expression that a healthy person has 1,000 wishes, but a sick person has but one.
That's right. That's right.
So to appreciate the gifts that we've been given, I know we're all dealing with different challenges and different frustrations. And I would just say, make every day count, because it's not necessarily all guaranteed. And, there's probably at least half of the world, if not more, like 85% of the world, that does have more challenging circumstances. We're very blessed to have what we have at our fingertips here. And by knowing you, Kevin, anybody who knows Kevin Thompson knows, already dozens and dozens and dozens of high-level people. So thank you for including me in that network.
Well, my pleasure. And Tim, thank you for just being the person you are and showing up the way that you show up. It was such a pleasure, such an honor having this conversation with you today. So thank you again.
Most welcome.